When I was a kid growing up, I didn't have Xbox 360. I had something called, well, hang on, Daydream 24/7, pretending. Who else did a lot of playing and pretending as a child? That's what I did. I pretended to be an astronaut, Batman, a race car driver, and I even played with my sister's dolls every now and then. But what I really loved to play was being a pirate. And I have to blame my grandparents for that. On the shelf in my grandparents' home was this book. Anyone read Treasure Island? It's my favorite book. So when I discovered this book, it was amazing. It was dark. There was people being murdered. It looked mysterious, and I couldn't believe my grandparents let me read it. It was dark, and it was full of scary shit. That's what I thought. As I got older, anyone know who Alice Cooper is? Alice Cooper once said, "Rock and roll is full of Peter Pans. I will gladly be Captain Hook." And the interesting thing about this photograph, Alice Cooper's first hit was in 1970. These kids weren't even born, but yet when he does a concert today, kids younger than millennials show up with Alice Cooper makeup. Why is that? Think about it. One thing is bands have fans. Brands have customers. So I'm going to talk about pirates and how we can learn from pirates. But before we get started, I want to talk about us, all of us in this room. You know about us as marketers. We're always ready to try the next new thing. We're always about measurement. Ken just said you need to stop measuring brand engagement and look at the engagement of your customers, of your fans. We've got to stop being old school and thinking it's a one-way conversation, because it's no longer a one-way conversation. We've got to stop being smitten with the shiny objects. I love social media, but we've got to be social media agnostic. We can't think about tools and tactics first, because we've got to start with people, just like you. If we start with people first, we're going to be in a lot better place with our marketing. So that brings me to this word, community. Who builds a community? Who has a community? Any of you have a community? We have screwed that word up as marketers. We need to take the pirate approach, and we need a mutiny. We need a community. We need to reframe the meaning of community to what it's like. That's our cafe, our football team, our kids' school. Where communities are in our real life, in the day-to-day, we have a tendency today to think that community is a social media platform, and it's not. So are we a member of a community, a tribe, or are we just a member of a social media campaign? What are we doing as marketers? Because community becomes the touchstone in our life. It's our heartbeat. It's our passion. And communities are about people. That's where we share our mutual benefits, our values, our beliefs, and it's when we're happiest. It's our DNA, is to connect with people. So community is really the heart of a brand's mythology. The stories that get told about a brand are not your marketing. It's not your tweet. It's not your Instagram. It's the stories that people tell about how it affects our lives. So a brand's mythology becomes a community mythology through the stories that get collected, enriched, and shared by people. And that's what we need to strive for, is to build community mythology, not brand mythology. And it's the center, it's the fire, it's the nuclear reaction that stokes it. It's like pouring gasoline on the fire and it explodes. When you have people that live their lives and are living messengers for you, it is amplified. It becomes a nuclear reaction. So brand advocacy is not Twitter. Brand advocacy requires advocates. And advocates are people like you and me. We're an advocate. And I like to say, you can pick your influencers, you can pay them money, you can hire them, but you can't pick your fans. So think about it. Do you have fans? Or do you just have influencers? Will they do it without you giving them a dime or giving them a free product? Will they do it? Do you have fans? Because they're the heartbeat for this mythology and for community. So people share when we make their lives better. I like to say it's when we make their lives badass. That's what people want. So no people, no conversation, no word of mouth. And so word of mouth is what we do naturally and organically. It's not what we do when we rate something on Amazon, or it's not something that we tweet about or we Instagram. It's when we're sitting across the table or meeting in a cafe line. It's when we have an honest, natural conversation. That's organic word of mouth. And it is the most powerful form of marketing. So your goal should be grassroots marketing, grassroots community, where people connect with each other. This is a photo from the March on Washington that happened after President Trump was elected. It was huge, it was massive, and it was all these different types of people coming together. Because, everyone has their own path in a community. The point of community is to bring people together that might not be like-minded, that might have different points of view. So the beautiful thing about word of mouth is it's sustainable. Why? Because it does bring us together with people that are like-minded. I might be a freak, and you might be a freak too. And so we're in the same community. It also gives you a chance to share that uniqueness, to build a relationship, and to share your knowledge. That's what makes community so special. So how do you start? So I tried to think for you guys the simplest way to start on this, and I don't know if anyone, I've only got to hear today, but has anyone spoke much on micro-influencers? I will tell you that, in my opinion, it should be micro-inspirations. A micro-influencer is an everyday person, just like you and me, but they know a little bit more. They're the person that you go to because, like me, I've had 3 Mini Coopers. I know about Mini Coopers. I've been in a bad accident, but I still have one. So people ask me about Mini Cooper. They trust me. My voice as a micro-influencer is 4 times more powerful than an average consumer. In some ways, I'm more powerful than Kim Kardashian because people know me and they trust me. You might be one of these people, and I know you know someone like this that's a micro-influencer. Because they're authentic, they're credible, and people trust them. So you might be surprised, and this is where the pirate stuff comes back in, that a long time ago, 300 years ago, a group of people were actually doing this. They built community right. They stood for something that brought them all together, and they were all different. And I'm talking about pirates. So if a pirate was here today, they would look out at this crowd and say, it's time for a mutiny. It's time for revolution when it comes to marketing. I like to say it's a brave new world, because it is. The brave new world is not technology. The brave new world is local. It starts local and then goes up instead of going out and going down. So we've got to go local. So this flag is over 300 years old. It was designed by really a terrible pirate. His name was Jack Rackham, but he designed the brand that we now use for our child's birthday party, a mascot for a football team. You maybe wear a pirate costume for Halloween, and there's getting ready to be a movie called Pirates of the Caribbean coming out. But why, 300 years later, is this still culturally relevant? Why does this symbol stand the test of time? It's the myth. It's the mythology. It's the stories that get told about Blackbeard and Black Bart and Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow, Treasure Island, Captain Flint, Long John Silver. So it's the stories that get enriched and shared and collected by people. That's what creates the myth for pirates. But behind the pirate myth are some interesting lessons for us in marketing and business. Because that flag wasn't just a mascot. That flag had a business purpose. The goal of the flag was to create fear. The goal of the flag wasn't to fight. The goal of the flag was that we will raise it and you will surrender and we'll take your plunder. They didn't want to fight because they lost materials, they lost people's lives if they fought. So the flag was a brand, but it was a brand for fear. And they had a reason for that, because it was a protest against oppression, poverty, and a cry for vengeance. Because most pirates were mistreated. They were terrible. They were villains, but they were also mistreated. So pirate seamen, their actions were concerns of class. The slaves became pirates. Women like Anne Bonny and Mary Read had an equal vote, and they didn't in countries at this time. And they also, once they took over a ship, they created a code to live by. Every pirate had to sign this code. They had to mark it with an X. They had to push it with their blood. And they had to say that they would live with this code. And this code allowed equal voting rights. Every person got one vote. Every person got a division of money, of plunder. They had a right to good entertainment. They had a right to good liquor. That's real important if you're a pirate. Rum. And good food. Because when they were seamen on other ships before they were a pirate, they often weren't paid and they weren't fed. And if they ever lost an eye, an arm, or a leg, they would be marooned. But pirates gave each person disability. If you lost an eye, an arm, or a leg, you continued to get paid and you stayed on the ship. They were the Social Security administrators of their time in the 1700s. They didn't allow fighting. And so all these people came together from all these different places, Irish, Spanish, Portuguese, African, American, and they sailed under one nation, the nation of the Black Flag. So pirates, I won't lie, they were not Robin Hood. They were villains. But they fought an injustice, right or wrong, and as of today, 300 years later, they have won a war for cultural relevance, which far too often brands cannot do. We could probably count on this hand how many brands are 300 years old. There's not many. So let's step back into the world of marketing to try to bring this home for you guys. So communities require a sense of space, a place, a vessel. Don't start here. Don't start with your social media. Sometimes we think automatically, well, we've got to build community. And there's nothing wrong with a blog. There's nothing wrong with having Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest. But that's not really a vessel where people gather. Think about a ship. Think about your favorite coffee shop or cafe. I ride bikes. It is a community. We all pull for each other in that classroom. Think about your gym, your Zumba, yoga, whatever it may be. Those are places of community. It's where we gather and we support each other. What I want to share with you guys is something new. It's what I'm working on. And so I have a process for this that we do at Brains on Fire, and it's called the shared ship. And the shared ship is what I've been talking about. It's a community of people brought together that's going to tell stories that get collected and enriched and shared about the things that we're passionate about. So, a little bit of a twist of marketing, and I'll kind of walk over here. Most of the time in marketing, we spend all of our money and energy to the right. We're building influencer campaigns that for people that share on behalf of the brand. We're building ambassador programs so that they can act on behalf of the brand. That is brand driven. Okay, that's like you hire them for 30 days and they'll talk about you. But what happens afterwards? If we aim for the top, the evangelist, the micro-influencer, the person that loves your brand, they're going to do it continuously. It's not going to be for 30 days. It's going to be for years. It could be for life. What we've got to do as marketers is have a plan for these folks. Ken talked about, I'm just satisfied. We take that now that if somebody likes our Facebook page, that's great. No, it's not. It's passive. It doesn't really mean anything. So we've got to find people that like our brand and move them up. Give them the opportunity to support us. Give them a way to kind of signal how we help them in their life and celebrate that. Repost their post, things like that. Because we want to build that ladder to the evangelist. And that's who we need to focus on. So I'm going to get a drink of water, and I want to share a love story with you guys. It's not about trolls, but anyway, I promise. I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. His name is Rob Morris. He really doesn't have a patch, but I put one on him. But Rob came to Brains on Fire with several problems. The first was, I'm getting ahead of myself. Rob has a saying, and he told us this saying over the phone, and so after he said this, he said, come to South Carolina. We want to see ourselves in a bigger story than just our own lives. It's who we are as people, as human beings, is that we want to connect with others and be a part of something big. We want to be a part of change. So Rob's problems is that the name of his organization was Justice for Children International. And another organization had the same name, and he had to change it. So he had to change his name. The other problem is this. Is that every 2 seconds, a child is sold into slavery in the world. And he doesn't want to lower it, he wants to end it. So Rob said, I don't have any money, but I've got a story. And I want to tell you the story that Rob told us today. So on one of Rob's many trips to the Philippines, he was there undercover to bust a brothel. And I don't know if you know about the brothels in the Philippines, but there's this little room you go into where all these men go into this room, and there's a little tiny window. And they look through the window, and on the other side of that window are young girls 8 to 13 years old with red dresses on. And they're gathered around a television watching cartoons. None of these girls would make eye contact and look back at the window where all the men were leering at the women, at these young girls, except one. And one girl kept looking back. And Rob said to himself, she had to be new because she still had hope, she still had fight in her eyes. Well, the bust went down, the undercover operation, and they did a sting to close down the brothel. That was the one girl that they did not rescue. And Rob said, I never got to know her name, but he said, I will never forget her number. And he rolled up his sleeve, and on his arm was 146. And this is a story of hope. I know that sounds sad, but it's reality. But what this one girl offered and what we saw in this is a story of hope. Because we all want to fill in the blank. We all want to be a part of something. I am a something. I am a fan of Columbia. I am Colombian. I am from South Carolina. We want to fill in the blank to be a part of something, to be another part of our identity. And we said, that's what you've got. It should be 146. It should be in honor of this girl's number. But the board of directors said no. And he kept trying, and we kept helping him. And finally, they agreed that they would name the organization Love 146. And the reason that they fought it was because it didn't say what they did. It didn't say anything about child sex slavery or exploitation. But you know what? We want to fill in the blank. We have to trust people that people want to be a part of the story. They want to tell the story to others. We want that empowerment. We want to be a part of that. And so Rob used to say that when he would go and fly to the Philippines, you fly for 16 hours sitting next to someone, and they would ask him, what did he do? And he said, well, I worked for Justice for Children International. And they would never ask him a thing again about his job. But once they became Love 146, and he told them that, as he said, thus a story is told. He's actually met people on plane flights that later took vacations to fly to the Philippines and work in their safe homes. So names are important, and more on that later. So this is their website. It's a storytelling website. And I can't say this enough to brands, to marketers, to agencies. We have to learn to give up ownership, because amazing things happen when we let our people do it. People create their own runs. Love 146 didn't sponsor this. They got the little cloth strip from a donation. They created their own team and they entered a race. Paramore. Anyone know who Paramore is? They're a band in the States. They were on the MTV Music Awards. They wore the patch. They now do benefit concerts for Love 146 on their own. Young women do photos of themselves with messages of 146. People decorate their shoes. This is not the brand. This is people. People that care and people that want to tell the story. Like his and her tattoos. Photo essays, Valentine's Day ornaments, cupcakes, and then they give all the money back to Love 146. They actually had someone win the lottery, $300,000 US, and they donated all of it to Love 146. One day a year, young girls draw a heart on their hand in memory of 146, and they make a statement. And it's amazing that all these people feel like they have power to make change and to tell that girl's story. And it's not the organization, it's people like you and me. So the results, it's been 4 years, and out of that, they now have had 4 times the donations per year since they've changed their name. There's now 394 task forces all over the world, because this happens everywhere. It happens in Colombia. It happens in my home state of South Carolina. My daughter was a runaway at 13 years old. If a young woman is not found within 72 hours, chances are to survive, they'll turn to prostitution. It's everywhere. There's been over 1,000 offline events by people just like you that have decided to do something. Do a car wash, do a run, do a bake sale, bake cookies, whatever. And they average now over 500,000 hits a month. So this is an amazing organization that allows its advocates to tell their story. And there's a lesson there. So before you pick up the phone tonight, and I want you to think about it, that, we see something, we heard something, and we tweet it, we take a picture. Rob says, movements are not a spasm of passion. That's what that is. Something affects us, and so we take a picture and we're done. Whew, I've done my job. But in reality, if we really want to create change, it takes a collective shout. It takes all of us to make change. So I'm going really fast. Sorry, I usually don't go this fast. But so 10 lessons that I wanted to share with you guys, and then a closing story. Number 1, start with people first, not tools and tactics. And get to know your customers. Walk in their footsteps. Learn empathy. Empathy for what goes on in their life. Go to lunch with them. Go to breakfast. Go to dinner. Do it with your employees. Have empathy. Find your hand raisers, your micro-influencers. If you do a survey and you get people that say, God, I love your stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then you have people that say, I really hate your stuff, you let me down. Those are both hand raisers. The people that love you and the people that don't. Find a way to engage them. Because they're hand raisers. Ask these people for their opinions. When people reach out, when they say you've done a great job, when they say you've done a bad job, they're wanting to give their opinion. Even if they don't like you, if they didn't want to help you, they wouldn't say it. So take what you hear, make them feel valued and heard. Then turn that voice into action. It's not really a community if no one has a job to do. It's not really a community if only the leaders have a job to do. On a pirate ship, everyone had a job to do. And you know what we're happy with in marketing today? Do you know what the engagement rate is for the average social media platform? It's not 1%, it's 0.1%. What are we doing? The only way a pirate ship could succeed is that everyone fought. Everyone had a job to do. And they did that because there were mutual benefits to us all. So I can't stress enough that you need to become an explorer, a values explorer. Your team, come together and ask them, what are 3 things that we always value? And what are 3 things that we never value? Then go outside of your team and ask another group. Ask your customers. Ask strangers. Be a values explorer. Don't keep your head down. Keep your head up. Look at what's possible. Because a lot is possible if we're willing to not look at what we've always done and look at doing other things. Search for the mutual benefits. Search for the spot in the middle, the sweet spot, that both your brand and your customers share. What do we have in common? If we don't have anything in common, you're in trouble. So hopefully you've got a lot in common. What are the mutual benefits? I can't say this enough. Don't think logo. When you think about community, don't plaster your logo all over it. People don't want to be a billboard anymore. Some logos are cool. I'm not saying if you've got a cool logo, do it. But most of the time, we want to get the biggest logo all over the front and the back. And ladies, you don't want to wear that. So, think flag. This is the Seattle Seahawks. The fans call themselves the 12th man. In American football, there's 11 players on the field. The crowd becomes the 12th man. It is all over that town. The buildings have it projected on buildings. People wear shirts. They have banners, jerseys. Think flag. And then think tag. You're in a city, I think, of beautiful graffiti. It's gorgeous. And the beautiful thing about tag and the beautiful thing about a flag is it's an open, community-sourced design. It's for the community. It's for people more than it is the brand. Because you want people to wear it when they're doing yard work, when they're taking their kids to school, when they're just walking in the everyday aspect of their life, not in a closet. Not when they want it to get dirty, not when they want to sweat in it. You want them to wear it because they're proud of it being on their chest. Like this. Because people want to be a part of the story. I can't stress it enough. Loveland 46 did not think about doing shirts until people did it themselves. This shirt was done by a group in England before they even had shirts themselves to sell. So identify your storytellers and empower them to share. Today in marketing, we believe that content is king. And that's not right. It's credible messengers of that content is king. It's the power of that storyteller. It's the knowledge that they had. Pirates and sailors traveled from afar and brought back tales to the shore of beautiful beaches, of rums, of silks and fabrics. They had stories to tell. Farmers told the local stories. They were credible storytellers. Craftsmen, makers, startups are credible storytellers today. We have to find the credible storytellers and just not do more content. Then you've got to bring people together. 90% of word of mouth that leads to a recommendation of a purchase happens face-to-face, not online. We have to do more to get people together, to get our fans together, to get our employees together. And that's how you build a shared ship. And that's how they know how you fit into their lives, and they'll tell your story even more if you bring them in. So my last challenge is this for you guys, and that is to walk the plank of the unknown. When you think of a pirate story, the person at the end that was going to face death had to walk the plank to a bunch of sharks. Well, I want you to think about that, because today it's an opportunity. Ken said it's like jumping off a cliff without wings. Whatever. Think about that. Jumping off a cliff, walking the plank, diving in to the unknown. You can't be afraid of the oh shit moments, because it's going to happen. It just is. And if you're doing something right, you're going to have these. So my challenge to you is don't be afraid of greatness. So what does that mean, don't be afraid of greatness? There's a saying from the Seneca tribe of Native American Indians that says, "He who would do great things should not attempt them all alone." I don't know if you know much about the native population of America, but the natives, the Indians that lived there for thousands of years, did everything as a tribe, everything as a community. And there's a great warrior from South Dakota. His name is Crazy Horse. And he believed in greatness. And greatness is not him. Greatness is not in you or me. Greatness is something beyond us. It's something bigger. It's something deeper. And we have to remember that true greatness is beyond just one person. I live in a country now that says make America great, but it alienates half the people. And so it takes all of us to achieve greatness. So my challenge to all of us as marketers is to think about doing more good in this world. That our businesses can do good. We can still make money. We can still make profit. We can still own a design firm, an ad agency. But you can also volunteer. You can do good in your community. You can find clients that can't afford your services and do a project for them every once in a while. You have talent. You have abilities that this world needs. And if we want to create change, it can only happen that way. It can only happen if we see ourselves as doing good for humankind. So my challenge to you guys is to be a pirate for good. And I'll close with the final story of Galileo. So Galileo, as you might know, people think he developed the telescope. But what you might not know is that in the 1600s in Venice, he heard about a man that had made a glass that allowed you to see things closer that were further away. And he needed to make money to keep from going to debtor's prison. So he went back to Venice. He went back to Italy, to where he lived, and he made a spyglass. And with it, you could see a ship 2 hours before you could with the naked eye. And he sold it to the Navy. And he could have stopped there, but Galileo didn't. He took that spyglass, made it a little bit bigger, and he looked at the moon. And Galileo was a devout Catholic. And it surprised him because he was told by the Bible that the moon was a heavenly body. It was shiny and smooth, but yet as he looked at it, it was full of craters and it was dark and it was light. It didn't look shiny. And he wrote about it. And the church persecuted him and made him take it back and say it was a lie. And so he did. Years later, Galileo made one even bigger. And he turned it to Jupiter. And he saw the moon circling Jupiter. And all of a sudden it realized to him is that maybe the earth isn't the center of the universe. That maybe it's something else. And he wrote a paper about that. And they threw him in prison. The last 10 years of his life, he stayed in his own home. He was blind, and it was because he continued to put his values and beliefs on the table. So my challenge to you is, do you raise your telescope? Do you look out and challenge your values and beliefs because these times are changing so quickly? Will you be like Galileo? And will you create change? So I hope you join me. And I've got 10 minutes. I'm early. And thank you. You're awfully kind. Thank you. Thank you so much.